I'm Andrej and welcome to my 1966 MGB GT. This is my daily runaround car. It's not a weekend toy. I use it day to day, come wind, come rain, come sun, you name it. I've had MGs since 1996. This is my fourth one, my third MGB and my second GT model. And this one's by far the oldest, being 1966. I grew up loving these cars. Some of you may remember the old Rover P5. Used to be called the poor man's Rolls Royce. Well, when Pininfarina designed the fastback for this MGB GT, it got dubbed the poor man's Aston Martin. And I grew up visiting my Uncle Dave, who had a 1970 Aston Martin DBS, which I occasionally got the treat of being out in, but I used to sit in his garage all the time and loved the memories of the smell of the leather, the petrol and the oil that you only get with classic cars. Why do I love this? Because it reminds me exactly of that every time I get in it, albeit on a bit smaller and a bit slower scale. This one is standard form. It's a 1.8 4-cylinder matched to a 4-speed gearbox with overdrive. One of the features I love, although a lot of people really slate it, is the overdrive gearbox. Third gear gets you around town from about 10 miles an hour upwards, and then just flicking between the ratios on the overdrives means you're never using the clutch, you're never bothering to have to change gear. I really love that feature about it. It makes for really good town driving. This model, unlike my first GT, also has the Webasto roof, which means you get the best of both worlds. You get a nice hard top car, which in the winter and the cold gets warm and stays warm. But then when the sun comes out, you can put the roof back and you can pretty much enjoy the same experience that you got when you were in the Roadster, the 2-seater soft top. This one I'm only planning to do some gentle modifications to. I want to keep it fairly original because that's what I've always had. So changing over some of the point systems like the fuel pump and the ignition over to electronic systems just makes the car that bit more reliable, and therefore you've got increased confidence using it as I do as a day-to-day car going around town. Haven't been overly far in this one yet because we're stuck in the coronavirus restrictions, so I've really been stuck to local roads and only just now beginning to enjoy getting out and about in my cherished little car. But got big plans for the car. Next year it's going down to London, where it's going to be converted over onto left-hand drive. Why, you may wonder? My intention ultimately is to export the car to North Macedonia, where I'm planning to retire in 5 years, and to do so in that country it has to be left-hand drive. Can't register a right-hand drive car there. So that's going to be a major piece of work, but I'm looking forward to that because, as far as I know, I think it will be one of the only MGs ever registered in North Macedonia, so it should stand out from the crowd just nicely. I've been thinking about other things to do to it, maybe on a longer scale basis. The engine, as I say, keeping it as original as I can as a 1.8. There are a couple of upgrades to the engine that the Owners Club do, a 2-litre version with improved inners basically, which makes the car a bit more faster and a lot more reliable as well. There's also a possibility of fitting an American V6 engine, a 3.4 litre, which goes in a treat by all accounts, but that would be something really special. It would just depend if the bank balance could stomach it, to be honest. Other than that, thinking about a change of colour. It's a lovely colour in British racing green, and I think that stands out nicely here in Britain. My concern is taking it over into the baking heat that is Macedonia. That colour may suffer a little bit and may fade. So I'm thinking about one of Aston Martin's colours, either the sage green or the silver birch oyster shell, and then converting the inside into red leather interior. I think that would really set the car off with it on its wire wheels. The car is fairly economical, to be honest, if you don't drive it with too much anger, which ultimately, as a long stroke engine, you don't want to be revving it too much anyway. You get about mid-20s to the gallon on average, maybe 30 if you go on a run, and that for an old car you can pretty much live with, to be honest. Other things into there, the parts are still readily available. There are a number of companies here in Britain and in Europe who supply all the parts for it still. You can actually build yourself a brand new one from scratch if you wish, and there are companies that actually do that for you as well. So it's really easy to get hold of parts. They're really cheap in respect to modern car parts because they're basically so simple. That's why I love this car. I got into them in the mid-90s because I was a musician, and as a working musician touring around the country at all hours in the morning, trying to insure a modern car through normal companies was almost impossible, and even if you could, it was very, very expensive, until somebody told me, don't get that, go and buy yourself a classic car, you'll get cheap classic car insurance. And they were right. I ended up paying £95 for my first insurance for my two-seater convertible, which, as opposed to a 1000cc Fiat Panda I had before at the time, was costing me £1,800 third party because of the risk of being a musician. That's what got me into them, tied in with the memories that I told you about at the beginning of the video, plus just the loveliness of the car, the readily available parts, and the ease of looking after it. It's the ideal day-to-day car for me.